Alright, hello everybody, and welcome to Character Corner number 3. This week we have the Donkey Kong series, and it won by a single vote, so I guess that shows that your vote counts. So remember to stick around to the end of the video to vote for next week's episode. This week I have Nantendo with me, and as I said, we're going to be going over the Donkey Kong series. So, Nan, the DK series in Smash has, just like sort of Metroid, been sort of controversial in terms of its representation. Didn't have a new rep until Brawl with Diddy Kong, and in Smash 4 it did not get a new rep at all. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I don't think that Sakurai is like biased against Donkey Kong or Metroid. I think with Donkey Kong, it's let's say a factor of the series not like being next to Mario and being like basically a sub-series of Mario. Mario's the one that will get all the focus. Yeah. Donkey Kong did obviously deserve more than one rep, and it got more than one rep. It got Diddy Kong in Brawl, and was meant to also get Dixie Kong in Brawl, but she didn't make the cut in the end. Mm-hmm. So it's never that like Donkey Kong was really being underplayed. I get the people's anger in Smash 4, especially with a series like Fire Emblem getting 6 reps, when Donkey Kong's obviously been around a lot longer and is arguably a better selling series. Yeah. But it's also a series that always had a changing cast, especially among the villains in recent years. And when it comes to the main characters, it's only ever really Donkey Kong and Diddy, and then occasionally Dixie. And that's it. You get the one-off characters like Kiddy Kong or Chunky Kong or Lanky Kong, basically, but that's it. So I think it's just that. I think perhaps Sakurai thinks that he's perfectly represented. Well, not perfectly, but he's represented the Donkey Kong series well enough in its 2 characters that a third one's just not that big of a priority.
Yeah, well, when it comes to Brawl, you know, they thought isn't there like the thought that Diddy and Dixie were meant to be one character?
Yeah, so the idea seems to be that, like in the original Donkey Kong Country games, you always ran around with 2 characters, and in Donkey Kong Country 2, they added the ability to swap between them because they both had different abilities. So Dixie could fly, whereas Diddy was faster, I think, and could jump higher. I don't remember exactly. But the idea was that they'd play like a cross between the Ice Climbers and... Well, we don't actually know the exact idea, but judging by how it worked in the original game, it'd be a cross between the Ice Climbers and a transforming character, where they would both fight and do standard attacks, but you could swap which one you were controlling with down B. But they couldn't get it to work, and so... But they both were made separate, and Dixie just didn't make it in time.
Yeah, I want to go back to what you were saying about being a sub-series of Mario, because before we talk about characters, I feel like that's an interesting discussion, is to a lot of people, and even to my younger sibling, he sees the Donkey Kong series as Mario. Like, when he sees Donkey Kong, he thinks Mario. He doesn't think of Donkey Kong Country, because that didn't come out until he was a bit older. When he was young, he thought, you know, it's just... Because he was born during the GameCube era, all that time, where it was just Donkey Kong Bongo game. That was the only game that really came out that was just Donkey Kong. And so he didn't really see it as its own series, which I guess sort of hurts its chances of getting another rep, but I mean, not too much.
Yeah, well, that's always a thing you have to think of. See, Donkey Kong is, out of all the Mario sub-series, the closest to being its own proper series, and arguably it can be seen as its own series, but they all started in the same place. Both Mario and Donkey Kong started in Donkey Kong, so really Mario is an offshoot of Donkey Kong.
Yeah, you could say that. So, I guess we can jump into our characters if you're done with that.
Yeah, I'm done with that. So who's the first character?
So our first character that we got on the list, before we get into the bigger ones, is Cranky Kong. Now, Cranky Kong is sort of controversial because people definitely want other characters before Cranky Kong, but Cranky Kong did have sort of a resurgence with Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, and he's a popular character too. Like, people say that he's hated, but he's really not. People do enjoy the character.
Yeah, I think people just hate him in a sort of ironic way, and you know, he's the grumpy old grandpa, so they're like, oh, I don't like it. He's always yelling at me, stuff like that. But actually, they don't hate him. They don't have like a horrible dislike of him. Mm-hmm. They hate him because it's the good thing.
Is it confirmed? Hold on. Is it confirmed that he is the original Donkey Kong, or is that just a fan theory?
No, it is confirmed. He's meant to be the original Donkey Kong. What people are unsure of is whether Donkey Kong is his son or his grandson. I think the current canon is Donkey Kong is his grandson.
Okay.
Because Donkey Kong Jr. would be his son, so I guess the current Donkey Kong is the son of Donkey Kong Jr.
I suppose so. Yeah. All right, you can go back to what you're saying about Cranky Kong.
Yeah, so Cranky Kong is the original Donkey Kong that people they like and they don't like because he's the angry old guy who's always giving them the extra, always criticizing them in the old games and saying he could do better. But it's not like a seething hate for him or anything. But in terms of Smash, yeah, there are reps that probably deserve it a bit more than him, and I would never have put Cranky Kong in there until Tropical Freeze, where he somewhat proved himself as an actual playable character with his Scrooge McDuck style of gameplay.
Yeah, definitely. For me, Cranky Kong is an interesting character because I definitely think that we would get different characters before him.
Yeah.
But Cranky Kong also is interesting because he sort of, almost in my mind, I can picture him as sort of like a DuckTales-like character, you know, like with like the pogo stick.
Oh yeah,
gameplay.
That would be what he's based around. He would definitely be the idea of using his walking stick as a pogo to bounce around. That would be the crux of his gameplay, and it's just building a moveset around that. And that's where I think Cranky Kong kind of falls a bit short. And I honestly think that's, with the exception of like a handful of Donkey Kong characters, I think that's where a lot of them fall into that problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can understand that. So for Cranky Kong, I think we can all agree that, like, you know, he would be cool. I don't think we hate him as much, and we think it'd be cool to see him in Smash, but we have other choices before him.
Yeah.
All right. So our second character is, there's a lot to discuss about this character, is Dixie Kong.
Yeah.
Dixie Kong is, I think, most people's most likely candidate for another Donkey Kong rep. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, I think she's definitely the most likely. Maybe one of the most popular.
Definitely one of the most popular, and I think almost undeniably the most likely. She is similar to Diddy Kong in a way, where, like, I mean, she's a very similar form structure, and people always argue that, like, she could be a semi-clone of Diddy Kong.
Yeah. That's why I think, just to stop people from getting angry at us saying this, that's why Dixie Kong is probably the closest, because they could easily start from Diddy as a basis and work their way from that. And they've already got the moveset planned out from Brawl if he wants to use that and maybe adapt it, change the downbeat to something else. Mm-hmm. But my main problem with Dixie Kong is I don't think she's, and this will upset people, but I don't think she's that interesting of a character moveset-wise. Like, I've seen some fan movesets out there, and some of them try really hard to justify how Dixie Kong could have a unique moveset, throwing in stuff like her guitar throat that she uses basically a taunt in Donkey Kong Country 2. Like, they make that a full part of her moveset to give her some sort of rhythm focus so that she would be funner, I guess, more unique. But that wouldn't happen in Smash because it's like a one-off thing that it's fine to do as a fan, but wouldn't work properly. It wouldn't be considered for Smash because it doesn't represent the character well.
Yeah, however, I've always seen Dixie Kong as a Diddy Kong semi-clone. At least for Smash 4 speculation, I always thought of her as this. I thought instead of shooting peanuts, she would shoot the bubblegum. Right? I thought instead of bananas, I thought she would almost maybe have bananas, maybe a different angle that she throws them or different properties to them. Mm-hmm. I thought maybe side B would be the same, maybe a different angle as well, but then up B would be like her hair spinning instead of the shooting the barrels. Yeah,
that's basically what she would be. Although I've kind of recently resorted to the idea that they would bring back the concept that they had with Diddy Kong, but rather than give it to Diddy Kong, give it to Kiddy Kong instead, because Donkey Kong Country 3 was all about Dixie and Kiddy. And although Kiddy hasn't at all appeared since, with Dixie Kong there, he could be added as a down B, so they replaced the banana with a transformation, and it would also match how transformation characters work by having a lighter, faster character and a stronger, heavy character. Because Kiddy would be like, it'd be like having Donkey Kong and Diddy as both one character.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I'm trying to justify that in terms of like how they could like put that in Smash, like to be relevant almost, because that is like a Donkey Kong Country 3 rep, right? Yeah,
that would be a Donkey Kong Country 3 rep, and that is its problem. It is a set of relevance, but it does make the character a lot more unique, especially if the specials revolve around the two of them, you know, both being alive, like it does with the Ice Climbers. Like his side B, for example, Dixie could either throw Kiddy and he doesn't go very far, but he slams into the ground, or Kiddy can throw Dixie and she goes really far. but doesn't do as much damage. But when one of them's dead, then their side B basically becomes useless. And their moveset could work. It'd be unique enough, I think, their moveset. But the fact that Kitty isn't been around very long makes me think that they'd almost go like Dixie and Cranky. But then that's not really a proper like grouping. That's never happened before, so that's also a problem.
Yeah, I mean, maybe like if they did, I mean, it's a smart idea almost to do like a Donkey Kong Country collection almost, if they did 1, 2, and 3 together and remade it with like Return's graphic style and then released that as a game. I could see that maybe being a possibility for a future Smash game.
Yeah,
I think that'd be a cool idea. So for Dixie, I think we can all agree that like if she was in a game, she would be a Diddy Kong semi-clone if she was by herself.
Yeah, if she was by herself, she'd play very similar to Diddy Kong. I wouldn't go as far as to say that they were like near clones, or even they could change up the standard attacks fairly easally by having
like hair into it or something.
Yeah, have her focus on her hair to attack people rather than Diddy Kong focusing on his limbs. But for special wise, unless they can really think of something, I can't see the down B and side B and standard B being that much different from Diddy. Yeah.
But then, of course, as we also mentioned, if she ever gets that sort of concept of like how the Donkey Kong Country games actually work with 2 characters, that's another possibility for her as well.
Yes.
Alright, so let's get into the big one. For Metroid, it was obviously Ridley. For this one, it's going to be King K. Rool. Now, King K. Rool has a very vocal fan base. I feel like with Smash 4 speculation, it took over the sort of Ridley part of Brawl and sort of became the loudest fan base out there.
Yeah, most Ridley fans had accepted by that point that he really wasn't going to be able to make it, especially because he was already in the game as a boss. But King K. Rool wasn't in the game at all until he was as a Mii Fighter costume halfway through DLC.
So, I mean, with King K. Rool, before we even get into moveset ideas, I think we just need to address the elephant in the room, which is the relevancy argument, of course. Because, of course, like, if you say that around K. Rool fans, they will get upset, and I'm sure they're going to get upset in the comments. You know, I don't blame them, because they hear it all the time. I tell it to them all the time as well. I love K. Rool, but I try to be real as well and not get my hopes up. It's relevancy. You can say it doesn't matter in Smash with characters like Rob, of course, but I mean, that's a different situation where it's like a retro character. I would say when it comes to a series that is still ongoing and alive, such as Donkey Kong Country, that it does matter that it hasn't shown up in games in recent years. What would you say?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. So, like, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, like, just came out at a bad time for when Smash began development, because unlike Fire Emblem and Kid Icarus, it wasn't recent enough that it was on Sakurai's mind when he came up with the characters. It came out like 3/4 of a year later than the project plan started. But even if, say, Tropical Freeze was closer to its planning, King K. Rool still wouldn't have been chosen, because he's not in that game. He's not on people's minds. If anything, that would have gotten Dixie Kong in instead. Like, unless King K. Rool comes back, because as far as I'm aware, the last game he was in was the Mario Baseball series. And that has like a million characters. Well, not a million, but that has a lot of characters. And King K. Rool is just one of them.
And he was just chosen because like he was like they liked his character or something, right? Like it wasn't like
I mean, like they had King K. Rool, but you also had Critters and Tiny Kong, Lanky. I think Lanky Kong, Baby Donkey Kong was even in there. Like they were literally going all out and pulling from everywhere. So unless K. Rool comes back as in the main Donkey Kong series, he is suffering a bit.
And I mean, I definitely think that like it could happen in the future, right? Like I feel like if maybe they do a Returns 3, there's so much outcry for. I was surprised they didn't do it in Tropical Freeze even, but there's such an outcry for the Kremlings and K. Rool to return that I mean, it'd be stupid for them not to do it.
Well, I think Retro just wanted to, not be compared to the Rare series of Donkey Kong games, and so we're aiming to find their own sort of villain that they could have as the focus, and they failed in Returns because nobody cared for the villain in that game. They just thought it was pointless. So they had to come up with a new one for Tropical Freeze, and they did a much better job. The Snowmads are a much more interesting villain than the Tikis ever were. So I can understand Retros want to not use K. Rool, but I believe that the Smash Ballot is going to be used, the data from that, in other games, and King K. Rool is very obviously a high up on that list. I can't imagine him not being high up.
And so when it came to Smash's ballot, right? This was something we discussed in the podcast. I think it was 2 weeks ago with Omni, right? Is where we said that we think K. Rool was at least I personally thought that K. Rool was probably really high up on the list, maybe even number 1 in America, and then they put in the Mii costume as a consolation prize.
Yeah, I think a lot of the Mii costumes were consolation prizes for popular picks.
Yeah.
But yeah, King K. Rool, he would be interesting. There's certainly no arguing that. I feel like he's not totally unique. Like, he's not a clone of anyone, not at all. But just thinking of his sort of moves, he'll have like a standard gun. His crown could almost be too similar to a boomerang. His up B, where they jump up and comes back down again, is basically King Dedede's. Like, he's similar. He's not 100% unique. He's not a clone though. But I think in the next Smash Brothers game, assuming King K. Rool does appear in a Donkey Kong game between then, he definitely has a good shot.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, he could definitely be on a base game, or even if they do decide to make new characters, if a Smash NX port is happening, and they look at the Smash ballot for inspiration, then I can almost definitely see him being added in. But that requires them to be actually making new characters.
Yeah, if Smash NX is a thing though, and they're gonna pick a Donkey Kong character, I think it'd be smart to choose Dixie, because they can at least use some of her moveset. I mean, some of Diddy Kong's moveset.
Oh, well, yeah, that's true. But I think the fan outcry for K. Rool is a lot bigger than Dixie. They're both big, but I think K. Rool's is a lot louder and bigger.
Definitely. So, you were going on about moveset. You want to go into that a little bit more in depth?
Well, they can take moves from all 3 of his forms, basically, from all 3 Donkey Kongs, but it would mainly be the first 2. The way I was seeing it is like his main B would be his Bluster Cannon, or Blunderbust, or whatever it's called, from the second Donkey Kong game, where you charge it up and it will shoot out distance, but you can fire it. Like, the more you charge it up, the further it goes out. But customs can have one that bounces, or fire one of them energy balls that he does later on in his fight. His up B would be similar to King Dedede's, but maybe at more of an angle. I always thought his side B could have him throw his crown or his pirate hat, like he does in the games, and it would basically act like a boomerang. And then down B, I haven't actually thought of one of yet.
Yeah, I think when it comes to K. Rool, he can almost be sort of like a Mega Man, right? Where like he's taking moves from like different appearances, where he looks different. Like with Mega Man, I mean, he doesn't look normal when he throws Metal Blade, right? Just like K. Rool looks like a pirate, or sometimes he looks normal, or stuff like that. Like, I feel like he would look like a normal K. Rool, maybe with an alternate costume, but have all those moves.
Yeah, I think he'd just take from his main appearances in the first 3 Donkey Kong Country games, and maybe a couple of standards from Donkey Kong 64. He would definitely be based on his Donkey Kong Country 1 design, and maybe have the pirate costume as an alt. But that'd be... They could take something from Donkey Kong Country 3, but there isn't that much that I think would work. Maybe he can have a custom up B which involves propellers, but that's all I can think of off the top of my head.
But yeah, for K. Rool, man, I mean, it's a shame, because so many people like him, so many people want to see him, and like it's just like on the tip of like almost being in, but it's just one major factor that's holding him back. Same thing with Ridley, right? Like, it's just his size that's holding him back, I would say.
Yeah, I'd say there's
a little thing. It's like, if you just change that in a game, like if K. Rool, if they just put him in a game, if they just downsized him a bit, it's so many things like that. It sucks for such loud fan bases, but it's a factor,
Yeah, there's a lot of characters though that suffer from that as well. It's not just those 2.
Like Isaac, for example, with relevancy.
Yeah, Isaac's another one. Takamaru, with people whoever knows about him. Gino recently Gino with Square Enix. Yeah.
So, let's get into, after K. Rool, what are some other characters, Nan, that you would like to see, potentially, from the Donkey Kong series? So,
this is one I've had on my mind for a long time now, that the next obvious choice for a Nintendo history character would be Donkey Kong Jr. Like, he's an easy throwback to the classic Donkey Kong games, especially now that the only other 2 main stars of that series, Mario and Donkey Kong, have gone on to create their own series that they're based on in Smash. Mario is based on Super Mario Brothers, not Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong is based on Donkey Kong Country, not Donkey Kong. So Donkey Kong Jr. would be a perfect throwback to that. And I did him with a moveset on Source Gaming as like the second Dream Smash they ever did, was Donkey Kong Jr. So I won't bother going into a moveset right now. You can go check that out if you want to see what I thought about it. But I think he's one of the only few choices left to fill that Game & Watch Duck Hunt sort of spot, the other one being Sheriff.
Yeah, I see that.
So
I'll link to your Donkey Kong Jr. thing in the description, alright?
Yep.
Because that's pretty interesting. For me, another DK rep, I mean, I can't really think of much, really. I feel like we sort of hit the ones that are likely to be in. If it comes to another one, the Rhino? I
Rambi.
can't... Rambi? I mean, he's... I guess. That's the only one I can think of off the top of my head.
Well, a moveset that uses animal bodies would be interesting, or I think that makes a better assist trophy almost, though.
Yeah, he'd definitely be a good assist trophy.
The one character who's really popular is Lanky Kong. I think, again, like in a Waluigi sort of way, it's because he's really weird and meme-y that people want to see him in there, even though he's not that relevant. I mean, he was what? He was one of the main characters in Donkey Kong 64, and outside of that, he was in Donkey Kong Jet Race, and I think that's about it.
Yeah, speaking of Donkey Kong characters just appearing out of the blue, such as K. Rool and Sluggers, or Lanky Kong like that, like, what's with Funky Kong in Mario Kart Wii, you know?
Well, that leads to another good thing, like, so I'm pretty sure Funky Kong was in Mario Kart Wii because they could easily make him from a Donkey Kong, from Donkey Kong's model. That's why Dry Bowser was also there, because he could be easily made from Bowser, and that's just more characters. Because, I mean, they love to do that in Mario Kart. Just look at Metal Mario and Pink Gold Peach for the obvious ones. So Funky Kong could be in Smash as a DK clone, almost.
Yeah.
Like, he would work pretty well as a DK clone. I mean, they're both meant to be brothers and stuff. I don't know whether he would be a weaker but faster DK clone, I'm not quite sure. Or if... I mean, he walks upright, doesn't he? So perhaps it'd be more like a slower Donkey Kong clone, but stronger. Like, he can't run as fast. I don't know. I'm just spitballing.
I can just imagine the trailer for that, like, just the reactions, and it's like, Funky Kong. Like, what do you even say to that? You're just staring at the screen, man, and you're like, Funky Kong. There it is. That's our DK guy.
Well, of all the reps, may as well have Tiny Kong instead.
Yep. All right, so is that all you got for Donkey Kong?
Why not get the Snowmad guy? Come on. If he gets another game, if Donkey Kong Country Returns 3 comes out and it's got the Snowmads in it again, then I could easily see one of them being added into Smash. Like, it'd annoy K. Rool fans, definitely. But
definitely, for sure.
I mean, they would be the current villains of the Donkey Kong series. So, yeah.
Yep. Alright, so I think that's all we got for Donkey Kong. So guys, thank you for watching. You can see at the bottom of the screen here some suggestions, not suggestions, you can actually vote on those for next week's Character Corner. As I said, Character Corner is now going bi-weekly. It's no longer weekly, it gives me more time to edit this, gives me more time to work out the kinks in the series, and that's basically what we're going with now. So I'm sorry if you guys wanted it weekly, it's going to be bi-weekly now, but it makes for better episodes. Nan, do you have anything you want to say?
Nope. We just hit 500 posts on Source Gaming. Woohoo! So go check that out.
That's good. We're working hard, guys. We want to get more video content out for sure.
And I should have my Balloon Fight Nintendo history video out by the time this goes out. So check that out.
Yep.
Hope you all look forward to the remaining parts of that. And yeah.
Alright guys, we'll see you guys in 2 weeks with the next episode of Character Corner. Remember to vote. We'll see you guys next time.
Alright, bye.